Last week on episode 365, I talked to you about how to turn your podcast into your 24/7 sales team. But I hinted at this episode and I told you there was a secret, the glue that really holds this all together, because it's not just as simple as just putting your episodes out there and walking away. There is something that holds it all together. And that glue, my friend, is how often you show up on your podcast. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's get started. Alrighty, so first things first, let's talk about why it's important that you are consistent and that you show up weekly on your podcast. So I have some statistics for you. 70% of people look forward to each episode. 20% consider engaging with your content or offers. 10% are ready to actually interact with your brand. And 2 to 5% who actually take action. So when you hear those statistics, which is like, it's hard data. It's us humans actually giving out information. You can actually take that and apply it to your business. Meaning, if you are not showing up consistently on your podcast once a week, then where does that leave you? Because if you're showing up on your podcast based off of inspiration or when you have time or when you feel like it, then you're going to get results that really equate the type of effort that you're putting in. And here's the crazy thing, the next crazy piece of information that I have for you to really solidify what I'm saying. I was watching something the other day, and if I find it, I will link it down below, where it said that it used to be that we needed 7 touch points in order to actually purchase something from somebody. So we needed to, for example, hear 7 episodes or just have 7 touch points with a content creator, meaning maybe it's a podcast episode, an email, a social media post, or whatever. Now, the number has increased to 34 touch points. So when we put that into consideration, if you're not being consistent with your podcast, it's going to take forever for you to actually turn a listener into a customer, into a client from your podcast. So it is important that you are doing your part and showing up consistently and showing up weekly so that you can build that trust and you can make those connections and actually make money from your podcast. Because the next part of this puzzle is that it is taking people longer to actually buy from you. So some people will stay in your audience for about a year before they buy from you. Some people, the average is about 60 days. And that should blow your mind, because now you know that it's not as simple as somebody lands on your podcast episode and they're going to take action right away. People are becoming more and more aware of their purchases. The economy isn't doing so great. There are so many factors that are going into this, and people are being more conservative with how they spend their money. They want to make sure that they are making the right investment and that you are the right person for them. So if it's taking people 60 days to make that decision to work with you, and it's taking them 34 touch points, and only 2 to 5% of people will actually convert into buyers, that should be really inspiring to you to actually stay consistent. Because guess what? Most people are not taking their podcast seriously, and most people do not know how to integrate their podcast into the overall marketing of their business. Now, on my own show, I have done different things throughout the years. So I have done 2 episodes a week. I have done 3 episodes a week. I have done stretches at a time where I've shown up Monday through Friday for an entire month. So I've done it all. I've done a lot of different types of content. So I've shown up for many different days throughout the week. And what I find has been working really well for me is once a week. I find that anticipation, because my podcast episodes, I create them in a way that they're super juicy and they're super informative. People are actually looking forward to the next episode. They're not bombarded with a bunch of episodes throughout the week. So I'm getting more engagement by actually releasing only 1 episode per week versus showing up a bunch of days on my podcast. Now, this is what works for me. And if you're new around here, you may not know this about me, but I am a very data-driven person. So I love to look at the data. And by looking at the data, I can see that my podcast episodes are getting a lot more engagement now that I'm launching 1 episode a week versus when I was doing 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes a week. So this is something for you to consider, and everybody's different and I don't have an answer for you. But here's the thing. me showing up once a week and having a lot of success should actually give you hope that you don't have to be a slave to your podcast. Your podcast episode does not become irrelevant. It's not like social media where you create a beautiful post, you put your heart and soul into that post or into that reel or into that TikTok, and then it kind of dies out, right? Like it just stays there. And of course, you can always recycle, but it does become irrelevant. So unless you are actually taking charge and recycling that content and repurposing the content, then it's just gone. It's now in the cemetery of social media posts. Whereas your podcast episode, because I know you're savvy in your SEO optimizing everything, and you are taking into consideration that the podcast app is a search engine, you know that your episodes are super relevant. And honestly, a true testament to this is one of my top downloaded podcast episodes is from 2022. So that should tell you that it doesn't matter how old a podcast episode is, it can still do really well because of the power of podcasting. Now, the next part of this puzzle is that you being consistent, it builds that trust and people know they can count on you. And here is the thing that's so beautiful about podcasting is that people will put you throughout their day. So I've talked about this at length, but you become part of somebody's daily routine. So whether they're making coffee, they're going for a run, they're going to work out, whatever it is that they're doing, they're making sure that your podcast episode is coming out. So they're going to make time to listen to you because you are now part of their daily routine. And it's that reliability and trust that ultimately turns listeners into buyers. It's because they know they can count on you and they start to realize that the free information that you are giving away in your podcast episodes, they're so valuable. So yes, I am so ready to work with you because you are the person that I come to week after week and you're always there for me. So make sure that you are being reliable and that you are giving value so you can build that trust with your listeners and of course, help them at a deeper capacity in your paid containers. Another thing for you to also become very aware of is if it's taking people 34 touch points to actually make a connection with you, that means that it's taken them 34 times for them to hear your offer to actually make the connection that they want to buy from you. So if you are showing up weekly on your podcast and you have a call to action like, hey, come work with me, come to this with me, this is how I can help you. You're strengthening that bond and you're actually ensuring that they take the next step with you. So basically, every single podcast episode that you put out is a sales call. It is a connection that you're putting out there. It's bringing you one step forward in the buying process. And remember, you might think that your listener is listening to every single episode, but life happens and they may not be, and they probably are not. And that's totally okay because we're real human beings. You know, we have a lot of things going on. So while you might have those diehard listeners, even the diehard listeners, your super fans might not be listening to every single episode because things happen. So the more consistent you are, the better chances you have of actually showing up and being top of mind for that person. So when they're ready to buy from you and they're choosing between you and 2, 3, 4, 5 other people, they know to come to you because you are reliable, you are helpful, and they cannot wait to work with you. The bottom line is that every single episode of yours is a chance for you to strengthen that bond and for you to deepen the trust that your potential client has with you, with your brand, and they're more likely to buy from you. At the end of the day, podcasting regularly equals trust and anticipation. You podcasting regularly means that when it's go time and they're ready to hire somebody, they're more likely to come to you, and your offer is a natural step, not a leap. Now, if you need help staying consistent and it's just like really super difficult and you just don't know how, then I have an episode for you, episode 251, where I talk about staying consistent even when things are crazy and everything's out of control. Now, if you need help staying consistent without actually adding more to your plate, then I want to invite you to work with me and my team inside of our podcast marketing agency, where we do all the work for you, meaning you record your podcast episode and we have a team who is editing, we have a copywriter, we have the person who's SEO optimizing your show for you. We're working hard to make sure that your podcast episode has the most visibility possibly can, and we can work together on building out offers, creating launches, and really integrating your podcast into your overall marketing. So all you have to do is show up consistently on your podcast and then watch everything else flow from your business because you're working smart, not hard, and you have an easier time to stay consistent because we're the ones doing all the back end of everything for you. Everything is in-house, one team taking care of all of the things for you so they can just podcast and do the things that actually make a difference in your business without adding more on your plate. Now, next week, I'm sharing my journey from launching my podcast to an audience of crickets, like literally no one, to now being a top 0.5% podcaster with, most importantly, a money-making podcast. So I'm breaking down the journey for you so that you can see it and hopefully be inspired so that you can see what is possible when you commit to podcasting and to showing up and to actually not getting distracted by all the different shiny things and the social media out there. When you focus your efforts into podcasting, it really does pay off. And until next time, may you find God's love, peace, grace, and mercy, and I'll see you then. Bye.